Hey guys, and welcome to another Talking Mods. Today we're going to go into some of the modifications, 5 modifications that you might want to avoid so you don't get caught with it and get some heavy fines on. Hey guys, on today's subject matter, it's been questioned and brought up, and it's often a topic that is asked. Are these modifications legal or not legal, right? There are 5 modifications in general that are going to be illegal. There might be more, but I'm going to give you the top 5 that I could think of off the top of my head. The first one is really related to the EPA video that I did with you guys. It's anything to do with deleting your catalytic converter or modifying it in any way. So guys, if you're doing a diesel mod, or which is basically again the cat, you're switching out the headers or doing downpipes, those are all going to be illegal. Those come in with again, that's a federal crime. That's all 50 states wide. So that's a 40,200. Obviously, internationally, you're going to need to, for all these modifications I'm going to be speaking about in the U.S. So number 2, changing the performance of the vehicle. Again, this one is related to the EPA as well. And what I mean by changing the performance, that's going to be anything from tuning. So all these different tunes that you get, unless you have that certification, if it says it's CARB certified, there are some companies that do get that certification, and it's great. But if it's a tuning company like BootMod or I don't know, there's a bunch of different ones out there. They're going to be illegal for your car, right? The turbocharge, putting on a turbo system without it getting approval. Now you can put a turbo system as long as it's a replacement turbo, but if once that modification, once that tune goes in there, and now you're changing the performance, it needs to get a certification. Now a lot of companies for superchargers like Vortec or Magnuson or Edelbrock, they are going out there and they're getting the certification. Dynon is getting their certification. So you'll notice with the bigger companies, you're getting that certification. So you can avoid that 40,200 fine. But you want to check. And obviously, without those certifications, it is a pretty hefty fine. Now, obviously, you're not going to get caught all the time with it, right? And I will say this on the other side of it. A lot of these tune modifications, a lot of them, I'm not going to say all of them because I know some of them have defeated it, they will also void the warranty on your vehicle. There are things in place where they trigger a code by the vehicle, and that triggers it. If you're wondering if you're going to get caught or not. The third one is going to be lighting, and now this one's a little bit different everywhere, but there are some basic ones that I'm going to go into. The number one, and you'll see this often, is actually how Mod Bargains, our company, got started. Again, shameless plug for all these parts, and we do check not only for the certification for you with our modification experts. The company, actually, one of the reasons that it started was I was in Europe at the time, and I had seen all these beautiful BMWs, and then I came back to the US.
Wait a minute, this isn't my world.
And I'm like, oh, what is this ugly look?
Disappointed!
And I mean by ugly look, it looked like a pimple on a car, right?
What?
These orange reflectors on the car.
Oh.
And I was like, why is there all this orange in the headlight and orange everywhere? And it was just super ugly.
Well, then I'm certainly grateful to be ugly.
And I couldn't stand it. And the first modification that I actually thought was necessary was to go into that look that Europe has. And here we get the ugly orange that doesn't match the paint color. It's just too many colors, right? So to me, it looks like a pimple.
Oh.
If you haven't noticed that, you're probably going to start noticing it now in those headlights or in those reflectors. So what does the law actually say? And it is a federal law. It says that it actually has to have a blinking amber and that it has to reflect when the light hits it. That's a very interesting thing. You can actually have it clear, but when it blinks, it needs to have amber in it. Or if a light source hits it, it needs to have an orange reflection back to it, which means that you can have a clear, and there are modifications that do that. It just needs to have the orange in it. So other lighting modifications that exist are obviously a federal board. It's called the NHTSA, and they follow the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. So basically what those are is, there's a certain amount of light that a headlight can go and a certain type of level that it can go to. So, or tail lights, and obviously sometimes they call it DOT. it doesn't have to be DOT, it just has to follow within these guidelines that they have set. Most of the major lighting companies do go in the aftermarket scene, do go and get those certifications, but you want to be careful with that. The other thing with lighting modifications is that oftentimes, especially like with BMW's Angel Eyes or Angel Eyes for the Camaros, you know, what we end up seeing, or Halo Eyes, whatever you want to call them, I often get the question of is, can I get it in blue?
No, God!
Can I get it in red?
No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Can't. And if you're being sold that, it is illegal. You'll often get pulled over for, the ticket will say, impersonating a cop. You can't have those colors because those are for safety vehicles. So while it might be cool to have red lights or blue lights, it is something that impersonates safety. Be careful with that, and so that's with the lighting. The fourth one that I have is often one that's not followed, not really looked at, and you're probably not going to get pulled over for it, to be honest. I know that with lifted Jeeps and so forth, a lot of people take out the fenders and so forth, or we have the wheels that are beyond the fenders. The federal law states that you need to have mud flaps, or mud flaps if you are, you know, especially the big tires and you're kicking up a lot of dirt. The only thing is, I would say, guys, add the mud flaps in order to protect other people from behind. You know, they don't need to be getting those rocks, but you're often not going to get a ticket for that. You're not going to get pulled over for that. Mud flaps is a type of mod that is legal, is a necessary thing, and it could be considered illegal. The fifth one is a big one. It is noise ordinance, right? And that comes into the exhaust. In California last year, there was a law that got passed without anybody's discretion. I don't know how that even happens. The lawmakers just passed it without any votes. It got repealed last year at the end of the year. I know that we had a lot of people who were very afraid, and they were running around and saying, hey, I need to take this exhaust off my car and so forth. It got repealed. The way they passed that law was considered illegal. I'm guessing somebody just got annoyed with people's exhaust and wanted to pass a law under everybody's nose. Well, it didn't get passed. Now, every state has different laws on this, okay? And with noise, this can also include your stereo system. In California, it's 95 decibels, if it's above 95 decibels. That is extremely loud, guys. And I say to know your personal state one because I've been pulled over for having an exhaust. And it was a pretty funny conversation. I just said to the officer, and he's like, your exhaust is too loud. And I just said, excuse me, sir, I don't believe it is. Do you know what the decibel level is? And he couldn't answer me back. He didn't even know the decibel level. I'm like, sir, it's supposed to be 95 decibels. And as soon as that happened, he realized I knew what I was talking about. And I didn't have anything that was overly too loud at that point. Every place is different, guys. So like, for example, in New York, I think it's 15 decibels over your environment. So if there's construction and they're making noise, it could be 15 decibels above that. So, or if it's in a quiet place, obviously that noise, it's very, very wonky the way the noise laws are. And there's some states that don't even have it. Like Texas doesn't have one, Florida doesn't have one. But guys, check your local ones, and I recommend that. In Europe, for example, you'll obviously hear, this is a big, big topic, right? And it's called homologation. That's what they call it over in Europe, in Germany, Austria, across Europe. And it's a certain type of ordinance level that they have. If something comes and it says homologation, most certainly it's going to be legal within the 50 states here. So brands like Remus, they spend a lot of money making sure that their exhausts meet a certain type of homologation. And these laws are way stricter than we have here in the US. Their laws are also about how the drive-by, how it sounds when it's passing, not just at startup and at idle. It's at all different levels. They have a measurement test, and it's very, very accurate. If it has a homologation, for sure it'll pass across the US if you're looking for that. And you have that concern within your country. That's my biggest advice on that one. All right, guys. So that's the 5 illegal mods that I thought of right off the top of my head that I always get asked about. I'm sure there are more that you guys can think about. If maybe you guys know some funny ones, put them in the comments. I'd love to read about them. I'd love for you guys to share with us, and I'm sure it's going to help out other people. If you know your current state one and others don't, you can please provide the link at the bottom as well. Guys, as always, I appreciate your time. If you haven't already subscribed, if you did like this video, hit the like button. As always, the notification. Again, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next Talking Mods.